Taylor Price, my guy.
So what you been up to?
Oh man, not much. I'm just trying to get back into my routine of working out and eating right, but it's a struggle. Every weekend I splurge, and then it makes Monday a lot harder, and then Tuesday start to get back on it. But that's pretty much it. It's training and working out. What about you?
I mean, same thing. Working hard, but like trying to maintain the balance between keeping the fiance happy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important. Planning the wedding and all that stuff, but like managing expectations for myself is like not trying to do too much, but then also at the same time try to accomplish tasks, at least something every day. And I started talking about that with my last podcast. Was like, I used to like be really strict on myself, especially in college. I made it a goal of mine to like get better at something every day, which is impossible.
Right.
Like, but I put that pressure on myself, and I thought, well, if I got better at a video game, that's okay too. Then like I'm rationalizing.
Right.
I'm not actually getting better at anything. It's like you get better at a video game, cool, but like what is that life skill teaching you?
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that you kind of were harping on a little bit a while ago, I want to say.
On the first podcast, Complete Athlete, or
I mean, on the first, yeah. I mean, that's something that we can go into, and I guess that'll kind of be the intro now is everybody, welcome to the Taylor Price podcast. This is my brother, Coach Mason Price of Complete Athlete Training, and we're kind of doing a little partnership here with them. For me, I'm going to be producing podcasts for these guys, and I have a vision for what I want to do for you guys, and I'm hoping I can pitch that to Gabe.
Yeah.
Because something that I noticed when you guys were doing your podcast, and I even said that in the text messages, you guys have the juice.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have that thing that I think the banter between you guys is so good that I don't think that there's a reason for you guys not to do something like that. Would I love to be the in-house producer? Hell yeah, because I could do so much more with my time if I was the only thing I was doing.
Right.
I could definitely like take pictures every day, do videos, do all that stuff for you guys, but like tell stories at the same time, because you guys have teams, right?
Yep.
How many teams do you guys have?
Right now we had 3 fall teams. We're gonna have one national team this winter.
Okay.
But I'm sure we're gonna have more and more.
And that's the thing. Is like I want to tell the story of those teams.
Right.
We're already going to be talking about on the Complete Athlete podcast how to get these kids getting better at the game.
Mm-hmm. Why
Why not tell their story on like a cool kind of like progressive, like, hey, this is Team A or national team or whatever it is.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great idea. I've always thought you've had great ideas, especially when it comes to our podcast as well, or Gabe's podcast, but I like to say ours.
It's going to be ours.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think that actually reminds me kind of Anatomy of a Fighter by Will Harris Productions. I think that would be awesome. I think if it was something like that, that'd be super cool. And just, telling these kids stories and getting it out there. I mean, I'm pretty interested by some of the TikToks I watch where these coaches are mic'd up during their training sessions, during practices, or even during games.
I thought of that. I was like, I want to get you guys, you Gabe. You guys could be chirping from across the way.
Absolutely.
Like, oh my god.
We have a trainer, John Carlson, that hasn't been on a podcast yet, who would be hilarious mic'd up. And then we have a trainer, Sam Crick, who also would be hilarious mic'd up in his training sessions. I think that'd be really entertaining, and I think those draw views, and it's kind of giving the viewers like an intimate, look on what the training sessions are like, what are the practices like, and what are the games are like for the coaches and the players. So
it's going to be a journey for you guys too as coaches, because like I think what I could do too is like the behind the scenes stuff. While I'm going through all the tape, like having you guys sit in your own room, kind of like like the MTV confessionals. It's almost like you're doing your voiceover work while you're there. You're talking about what you were thinking in that moment, but then you're also listening to yourself mic'd up and reacting to it all at the same time. Again, like
a little mini reality show at this point.
Again, like I can see myself doing that. All I need is 2 or 3 people with cameras.
Yeah.
And like I can edit all that down and like get that all that stuff done, because one thing that I learned in college was about like building the production and building the value of something.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at like YouTubers that I'm sure everybody in the world follows, like Mr. Beast and like anybody who is doing like production level stuff on YouTube is like somebody I admire, because the amount of care they put into something is the amount of care I was taught to put into my stuff.
Right.
And like studio photography. I mean, Professor Tom Greer at Winona State. That dude literally preached like every detail, so much so that while I was taking another photography at the same time, I got a worse grade in the lower level photography class because I'd spent so much time on that studio. I was like, but it means that like the details matter.
Right.
And I think that's gonna come out in like all of these like episodes and like seasons you guys are gonna go through, because I could picture it going for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Gabe wants to make an impact on all these kids in this area, so I mean, what a better way to showcase that, but then also like push merch and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like
absolutely, man. I can't wait to see where this thing grows, and I'm already pretty excited with what we've been doing so far, and it's only gonna get better and better. So it's gonna be exciting.
I mean, the best thing about what I think you guys are doing, and I've been very vocal about that since you started with Gabe, before you even really got paid for what you were doing, was like you were talking about the mental side on that. I'm going to release the first episode of the Complete Athlete podcast before this one, mainly because I want people to hear you guys and hear what you guys talked about. But then, I mean, the mental side of things that you talked about in that podcast, getting these kids better on and off the field, like that's something that nobody talked to us about.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's one thing that I wish we would have had while we were getting our training in high school. That would have helped me a lot personally. Yeah. It would have helped you a lot, I'm assuming, 100%. If we could have got better at the mental side of things. And you know, that's one reason why I feel like I'm a really good trainer / coach, is because I have a lot of experience, but I also have a lot of mistakes in my life, or things that I wish would have happened, like what we're talking about. Right. And you know, now I'm doing all that stuff for my kids now. Yeah. So I just think that at the end of the day, that makes me a better trainer, and you know, going through it, you know, is just having that experience is very important for sure.
Oh, well, I don't think anybody should have gone through the type of high school coaches and stuff that we went through, especially coming from like you talked about it and Gabe talked about it, but I mean, something that we could talk about expanding is like Coon Rapids National Little League was such a good place to come from. Mm-hmm. We were on a national stage, and I was definitely a lot closer to those guys that were on the 2017, being that I was a half year older than them. That cutoff of June, me being like 3 months behind that thing, you got to take advantage of that. You played 3 years of that majors level, and I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
But
I played 2 years of majors, and then actually 3 years of AA before that, or whatever, which
honestly
would have been what I would have had fun doing 3 years of majors, but it didn't matter.
But you were on that all-star team, that 10-year-old all-star team, because they knew how good you were.
Exactly, and that's what it was about. It was about that select all-star team, trying to keep us together as a group to see how good we would be by the time we were 100%. Eligible to go to Williamsport. And you know, that's why we had so much hype behind us, and that's why it hurt so bad when we lost.
No, dude, I hate Edina. I hate Edina.
It was Plymouth New Hope,
but
that team.
That too. I mean, it's just that mantra of Coach Cleveland. I mean, I can't say it enough.
Absolutely. Yep, Coach Cleveland, and he actually got that from Dean.
From Dean Smith.
Is it Dean Smith?
Yeah, Dean Smith. Dino.
He would come into our dugout, and he would just look at all of us 12-year-olds, and he would go, "I hate Edina." And it would get us kids so hyped, man. It was.
I was in the crowd listening to Dino to say that, and it's I never got to play on All Stars, so for me being like kind of snubbed in that way was kind of fun at the same time, because I didn't have that pressure. I could kind of watch from the outside.
Yep.
But I still, at the 2007, this is the funniest thing that I think, I signed an autograph at the 2007.
Really?
I was wearing a normal Midwest T-shirt. I wasn't a player, but he was like.
Yeah, that was quite the experience, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you and I, we were sitting in the back seat. We didn't get to drive. We are obviously too young for that one. But we drove 19 hours with our parents. Got there, realized we didn't have to pay anything to get into the park. It's just free. You just walk in, and then there's like all the food, the DeMarini baseball van. I know you and I spent a lot of time in that because we loved DeMarini back then. We saw kids trading pins.
I was doing a little bit of that for sure.
That was, I mean, every kid was doing that, and I had a few pins on my hats and stuff, and like I remember that Midwest hat, the blue and red. They changed that down to green and yellow.
Yeah, is this still Midwest or Great Lakes now?
I think it's Midwest. Okay. Midwest took the colors from Great Lakes, because Great Lakes used to be
was green and
yellow.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Not a huge fan, but
no, hell no.
It is what it is.
It's something about us where obviously I've preached this since I've been on this podcast. Minnesota, born and raised.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you not support your area? So like us changing to yellow and green, that's just not going to work.
I mean, the only thing that makes sense to me is if you didn't have a choice. Like if you were a kid that grew up in a Packers household and you didn't really have a choice.
Like our neighbor.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out the Giffords.
Yeah. We had a neighbor, literally, it felt kind of cool almost to have a neighbor being a Green Bay Packer fan. Because when you grow up with the Vikings, not even our cousins who weren't even living in the state anymore. I mean, they lived in the state when I was growing up, but like by the time you got to really hang out with Ryan and stuff like that, they were in Chicago.
Right.
He was actually becoming a Cubs fan.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Like, I don't mind the Cubs.
He still stayed loyal to all the Minnesota
But it was
sports.
definitely Twins and Vikings because he came and supported. But it's like when you have a neighbor who's a Packer fan.
It was fun, wasn't it? It was fun to have that friendly rivalry.
It was right next door.
Yeah, that was awesome. We would play football in the backyard, and he'd be wearing his Packer stuff. We would be wearing our Viking stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they couldn't get any better than that.
The Michael Bennett, the Mo Williams jerseys that I would wear. You had We had
Randy Moss. We had Chris Carter. We had a few jerseys. We had Culpepper.
The worst one of all of them, Troy Williamson.
Yep, I remember that.
The original 19. That. Actually, not the original, but like the first wide receiver that I could remember that was wearing the number 19. Right. And he was a bust. Like one of our worst picks. I mean, I feel bad, saying other, receivers that are bad in our but because we were blessed with like two of the best receivers that we could ever ask for.
Yeah, it was tough for him. We have a lot of receivers. Like I think of Laquan Treadwell as a similar situation.
Yeah, I feel bad for him because then he goes to another team and plays well.
Is he playing well right now though? Because I don't think he is right now. I don't even think he's playing right now.
I think he had like a revenge game against us.
I did remember that, but I don't remember. I know that he's not fantasy relevant right now because
because you're in the
pretty
fantasy.
heavy into fantasy right now. So I would know if he was doing good.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Like I think everybody in our family is competitive. I don't know anybody besides like maybe mom or dad. Like even mom when she played, won our family fantasy back in the day.
Yeah. Yep.
She got the year that LaDainian Tomlinson broke the NFL touchdown record.
Couldn't beat that.
I feel like if you're going to win a fantasy year, that's the best year to win.
Absolutely.
Mom's like, oh, I don't know what that is. I don't know what fantasy is. Wins.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like grandma learning how to play like Yu-Gi-Oh or something, and all of a sudden she just wins the game, and you're like, how'd you do that?
It's that beginner's luck. It's that intuition.
100%. But I wanted to also talk about for us growing up, I mean, sports were so heavy for us, but then we also talk about video games in that first podcast.
Yep.
I mean, we're still playing like MLB The Show and stuff like that, but like, we're not playing shooters anymore, are we?
No. Overwatch 2 came out recently, and some of the buddies are playing that. I'm not a huge fan of it. I just play just to be with friends, and
I mean, are we slower now? Like, is our reaction time slower?
Oh, 100%. It has to be, but I feel like we could get it back if we put the work in.
It's about training.
There is a chance I play a little bit of this new COD, the Modern Warfare 2.
It just seems like the good era of Call of Duty is definitely far and gone compared to like what we experienced growing up.
There was nothing like what we grew up on, like Call of Duty 4. World at War, Modern Warfare 2. I mean, even Halo and all those games. My God. Was that like that 2008 to 2010?
Yeah,
era,
2007 to 2012, 2013. Halo Reach. I mean, I played a bunch of that still. I mean, I have a bunch of friends. I mean, my best friend who's in Florida right now, CJ.
Right.
He and I met playing Modern Warfare 2. Went to Halo Reach, and like we just kept being friends through those games. It's like you can definitely track like the good era, the golden era for us.
Absolutely. Video games do not hit like they used to. That's for sure.
It's kind of sad. It feels weird for me because like I remember getting the N64.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got it right after Ryan because Ryan had it. So Ryan's playing like Wave Race with Lauren, and it's me, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I barely can know how to. I mean, remember the controller too? It's three pronged.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how to. My hands were tiny.
Yeah, I always struggled to hold that controller.
It was still a lot of fun, and that era for me was like growing up, learning about video games, going from 2D to 3D because, believe it or not, Dad
Game Boy and stuff like that.
Dad plopped me in front of the Intellivision. Do you remember that gold paddled one?
I can think of the old timey video game system that Grandma and Grandpa had.
That's the one.
Okay.
So it's the gold plated one. That's called the Intellivision. That came out in 1979.
Wow. Okay.
When Dad was like in college.
Right.
So he gives us that, right?
Yeah.
When we're hanging out with Grandma, because like we didn't bring our NES.
Yep.
So I mean, it's 8-bit. It's got no colors. You got like the games are called ice hockey. It's not called Madden anymore.
Right.
It's just football.
Yep.
And there's like blips on the screen, and that's your character. And I'm like, my imagination was going crazy.
Right.
But we were there to play with the army men.
Mm-hmm.
So like this old system didn't make sense anymore. But now that I wish I would have played it more, because there's something fascinating about that. The gamepad was just a number pad.
Mm-hmm.
And then a little like gold dial, then you could click in.
Yeah.
You could slide a piece of plastic over the number pad, and the numbers instead became the controls, because that little sheet just basically told you what the hell to do.
Right.
So I'm sitting there. I probably lost like half of those controls, by the way, for like all the games. But like the main game we played was Donkey Kong.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody had that game.
Right.
And, you're sitting there looking down, trying to like figure out the controls, and you're 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't figure that shit out.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking that like, if I could go back now and just like teach myself or my kid to play that game, or like show them all the old stuff, I feel like it would show them the same type of appreciation, like, and give them that golden era like we had, because I want that for other people.
I mean, that's wishful thinking, man. Maybe that would work. I feel like they wouldn't appreciate it as much.
If all their friends come to school and they have like newer technology, and they're like, haha, you're still playing the N64, when that come out?
N64, I think N64 is a little bit more timeless. Like, it could work for a kid now. Like, you could still have fun playing that, but I just don't think what was that thing called?
Intellivision.
Intellivision? I don't think that would.
Hell no. I mean, that
wouldn't interest a kid.
Yeah, like a couple of colors on the screen is definitely not going to give a kid enough stimulation in these days. I mean,
absolutely.
A TikTok video is what? I mean, they can go up to 10 minutes, but anybody watching a 10-minute TikTok video's got nothing to do or is taking a shit.
Yeah. No. When I'm training, sometimes they'll bring like the younger daughter or the younger sibling for the kid who I'm training. And they're just like sitting on a phone or iPad, and they are watching YouTube videos of like grown adults, like living their life. Like, they're just watching other people live life, or watching other people eat food, or watching other people play with toys. I think that is crazy. That's one of the weirdest trends that I've been seeing with some of the younger kids. It makes sense to me why it's happening. I mean, just 10 years older people, like our generation, are watching people play video games, and they're watching people people, we watch documentaries, we watch reality shows, we do watch people live their lives. But
that's a whole nother realm, like the people vlogging for kids. Like, I don't know, like the Logan Pauls of the world, like the Jake Pauls and stuff like that. Like, those guys are entertaining in their own respect, but like their target market obviously being younger people, kind of like obviously is a little weird. Yeah. So like we're entertained by people our own age. I feel like we've kind of grown with our generation, and like grown with the likes of our generation. We were pretty on par. Yeah. I feel like, if anything, like I'm an older soul because of Dad, because he gave, like, all my music taste came from him. Like, I like 80s rock more than I like rap music, even though I do love good rap music. But I'm stuck in like the early 2010s for rap music, like Mac Miller and J. Cole and like Kendrick. I'm stuck back there, man. Like, so like I feel like that's where I'm realizing like I'm stuck in my own ways, right? And I'm okay with that, but like I'm still trying to evolve and like get better with that.
Yeah, that's such a hard thing to do, and it's funny that we are experiencing that now
at our age.
So that means we're getting older. Is that we're starting to see the new trends of what the younger kids are doing, and we're just like,
we're finally confused.
Yeah, we were those kids before, 100%. like 10 years before. We were like, looking at older people like, wow, you just wouldn't get it. Like, you don't understand.
What do you mean? You don't get why I climbed Fridley High School? You don't understand why I would go up there?
Oh my gosh.
I should probably blurt out the name of the school.
Whatever. As long as we don't go into too much detail. But anyways, yeah, it's bound to happen to everybody. Like, no matter what, you grew up in your generation, and you can only keep adapting so much to like the new stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like for you and me, this is back to kind of what you started with. Like, I feel like you and me you're bound to be an older soul if you like baseball, because that's a game for.
That's very true.
It's a very traditional game. It's a very old game. It's a slower game.
It's more like chess than anything else. It feels like.
Yeah, it's not like all the trends of today, which is everything is instant gratification and things are happening quickly. You know, baseball is a very slow developing sport, and I feel like you have to somewhat be an old soul to enjoy baseball.
100%.
So yeah.
That's a very good point, because like baseball is slow. There's no time clock. Like we're very okay with like getting into battles with people, like, and taking our time. That's Absolutely. Okay. Like, I feel like you're learning and taking, like, I've almost learned that, and I said that in the previous podcast of mine. Like, I enjoy the journey now more than I enjoy the final product.
Absolutely. And that's a baseball thing, I think.
100%. Because, like, I enjoyed, like, the tee work, and you talked about that in the first episode of the Complete Athlete podcast. That tee work is something that's very valuable to you. And I was sitting there nodding my head like, man, it's such a valid point, because if you're not willing to put in the work on the little things, doesn't matter if it's tee work in baseball, it could be anything. Yeah, you're not going to get anything done. You're not going to find the nitty gritty, and really work on those situational things. And that's an old soul type of
and to go even further with this, I think baseball is one of those sports that unless they add like a 2-run home run for hitting at a certain distance, kind of like how NBA incentivized the 3 by, making it worth more points and, making it a further away shot because it's entertaining. I don't think baseball will ever get that. Like, it's always going to evolve. Yeah. But I think as long as the rules stay the same, you're always going to have to. I feel like the guys who grind things out and are going back to the basics and making sure they're doing all the basics the right way, getting base hits first before worrying about, big home runs and stuff like that. Yeah. I think that's always going to lead to success in baseball, 100%. No matter what. And even though you saw the trend in the last 5-10 years where everyone's batting averages are going down, slugging percentage is going up,
strikeouts are up plenty.
Strikeouts are going up, home runs are going up. I think that it's gonna come back. You know what I mean? That trend was happening the past 10 years, and I think people are starting to realize, it might be entertaining to see a home run and all that, but you need to go back to a base hit approach.
100%. You know what I mean? And there's going to be a value put more on that, the more that the game itself evolves towards that, and that's kind of the Cleveland Guardians kind of MO right now. If you're watching, they're not hitting a lot of home runs.
You see in the playoffs, man, you can be the best home run hitting team in the regular season, but if you don't know how to play small ball, if you don't know how to get base hits, if you don't know how to move guys over, steal bases, run the base pass the right way, create runs on outs and all that stuff, then it doesn't matter how good you do in the regular season. The playoffs, there's only, it's a small sample size, so it's very easy, it's very possible and probable that you're not going to hit as many home runs. And you have to figure out how to generate runs.
Or the inverse, like Harrison Bader. Yeah. He literally didn't hit a home run the entire season and goes into the playoffs and hits 3. Right. So the game is evolving and changing constantly. To me, it's like if we ever get to changing the rules of the game, we're going to have to do something like in Futurama, put the ball on a fucking giant rubber string or something like that.
Yeah, I think about that a good amount.
You got to hit a home run. The only way you can hit a home run is if you break the elastic string.
That is something that could possibly happen, because with everyone's obsession with bad exit velo, O'Neal Cruz, I'm on the hype train too, man. But
when you break a StatCast record already and people are losing their minds on a fucking single.
Yeah.
It was a single by
120 mile per hour single. Like,
Yeah,
that's super cool.
I'm sorry you didn't hit it higher,
right?
Because you would have murdered a little kid in the front row. But I'm glad that ball at least hit something.
If that ball was on the Futurama string or whatever,
that would have broke.
That would have broke.
Yeah, that would have broke. So anything. So that's theory craft. 100 plus off the bat should break the. I mean, everyone's gonna do roids again. I mean, or HGH or testosterone replacement therapy. I want everybody on that. Then
I have a feeling that majority of guys in professional sports are doing something,
and we just don't know about it
because there's just so many new ways to hide it, or to take a different set of drugs that is increasing your testosterone, or whatever it is. I think there's a lot of different ways to get around it, and that's just all speculation, because I don't know anything.
Again,
I'm not a doctor.
We're not doctors. Yeah. We're not going to sit there and speculate what people are on, but we can definitely look at people and be like, hey, Mark McGwire looked like this. Why does John Carlos Stanton look very similar?
To me, it's not as much about that. It's I think it's more about these guys, some of these guys, like, ability to recover. I think it's more about that. Because I think, for one, in a sport like baseball, it doesn't really help you to be super jacked. Like, you can have muscles but not super jacked. You need that range of motion in baseball.
And I think that's what Mark McGwire talked about. He's like, I was only using it to recover.
Yeah, and I mean, when you have elite recovery like that, your muscles are going to grow like that too. Especially if you're working out. Yeah.
If you look at him from when the time he got to the Oakland Athletics, and Jose Canseco got in the locker room and was like, hey man, look what I got. Yeah. I got this thing that makes you fucking massive.
And to think that sort of stuff isn't still happening, but in like a more of a gray area type of thing, like, I feel like there's so much more gray area with all this new, there's so many new, like, ways, I feel like, to either trick the system or just have stuff that people haven't heard of that aren't on the ban list yet. Or
I feel like that happened, like, because I was listening to Pat McAfee on his show, and he was talking with AJ Hawk about, like, painkillers and stuff like that, and they're listing things that, like, I'd never heard of. Mm-hmm. And I was like looking it up, and I'm like, wow, that's a legal drug that does the same thing as something that's banned.
Right.
So, like, eventually down the line, I can see that being banned. And we didn't see that until, like, I don't know. I mean, the drugs being more apparent in, like, things that you and I are fans of, like UFC and stuff like that. Like, I feel like those guys back in the day had to have been on, like, steroids, TRT, or if they could have been.
Absolutely. There was no testing back in the day either.
Yeah.
So.
And, like, the Mark Kerrs of the world. Like, I mean, like, they're talking about how good he was. I was like, the dude was stronger than people because he was a fucking bear.
Mark Coleman? Mark
Kerr.
Which one's Mark Kerr?
He's the one that they did. Oh, you got to look him up. Like, was a great fighter, but then he was, like, so jacked that, like, when he finally like fell from grace, like, he became, like, big. Like, I feel bad for the guy, but, like, at the same time, like, it's what happens when you take steroids. Mm-hmm. And they highlighted the fact that the dude was just a fucking animal.
Right.
Like, he was an animal. He was a killer over in Japan too. So, like, when he stops taking steroids, his body just gets depleted, and you see him, like, losing all these fights and, like, just doing it for money. You're like, that's the reason why you don't do that shit.
Yeah. Yeah, there's.
How do you tell kids that?
Pros and cons.
You don't want them to get an advantage, though, because, like, that's something that, you can get really good, and then, like, somebody recovering faster than you.
Well, this is the hope is that the way our culture is set up and the way we teach our kids to do everything the right way and to put hard work in, and we always are harping on with our older kids on nutrition, with protein, and making sure they're eating enough to gain good weight, and hopefully you would just hope that the way that we're teaching these kids and the culture that we're setting up is gonna just teach them to do the right thing in general.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And avoid cheating and avoid getting an unfair advantage. But at the same time, like I was just alluding to before, I think that there's not necessarily anything wrong with trying to get an advantage with a substance that isn't banned. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As long as it's healthy for you and it's not going to negatively affect you, and it's some new thing that whatever sport you're in hasn't deemed illegal,
or whatever,
then by all means, because people are always trying to find advantages through protein, through creatine, through.
Well, I mean, even pitchers with the sticky substances and like the whole checks and stuff that they've been doing, like it doesn't even limit themselves to just taking something. It goes into like gamesmanship and stuff like that for me.
Right, and the thing with that is if everybody's doing it, if everybody's trying to find some sort of advantage, it's not as much, unless it's clear and concise, like you are breaking the rules, then that's it's how do you, first of all, how do you police that, and second of all, how do you criticize that? You know, it's somebody who is trying their best to succeed in their career and make as much possible money as they possibly can,
especially if they're professional or like the prospect of being one, even if you're in like the minors and stuff like that and they like pop you for steroids. I'm kind of like, I don't blame them.
I mean, there's been so many guys that have got popped for some sort of PEDs and people forget about it, or people or like literally nobody even remembers, like Nelson Cruz.
I was gonna say like a famous Minnesota Twin recently with Nelson Cruz.
Cruz. I mean, everybody loves him. David Ortiz got popped for something. I don't know if that was ever fully.
His name was on a list, but it was like they like got mad. He got mad and saying like, I never popped for anything.
Right, but there's been plenty of guys who've gotten suspended for PEDs that people, maybe they'll remember Tatis because of how big of a star he is.
Right.
But with his thing, like, I don't know if you've looked into that. Like, his argument or his excuse that seemed really crazy is actually, I think it was Baseball Doesn't Exist or Foolish Baseball. I forget, posted a video on him and saying how he might be, he might be saying some dumb things. Like, he might be saying the wrong things, but he might have, like, actually not cheated and, like, it might have all been an accident.
Which is crazy to prove. I mean, they've had in other sports, given athletes chances to like prove it. Hey, like I didn't do this. John Jones, like that whole thing with him, like one metabolite, like are we seriously considering the fact that like one small minute amount was going to actually affect the greatest fighter on the face of the planet at the time?
Right.
Like, let's be fucking real.
But how you don't blame people for the outrage, because like it's a guy who's clouded by controversy, and
I mean everything he did was obviously like front page news if it was good or bad, and
so how do you blame people for like assuming that he did cheat? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, even if it's like a little bit, it's like, why is there even a little bit? It's like I get that perspective of saying like, hey, like why is it even there in the beginning? It's like, well, if I'm a professional athlete, don't you think that there's somebody out there that might want to ruin my success?
Right.
Like might be somebody out there trying to not put everything in. I mean, we already know people can not list everything on nutritional facts.
That reminds me of Ryan Braun.
Right.
Ryan Braun, he got popped and then he lied and made up an excuse or whatever, and they reversed his suspension. They retracted his suspension and believed him, right? And then they even issued an apology to him,
right?
And later he got popped again.
I forgot about that.
And then he admitted that he was lying the whole time.
Oh my god,
that's some crazy stuff.
That's one of those things where you're like, from that point on, that guy's, no matter what, he's tainted. Because what if a guy does just say, yeah, I did it? We might hold him in high regards. I keep making UFC to baseball references.
Right, that's fine.
Chael Sonnen.
That's what we watch. I mean,
that's what we like.
Yeah, that's what we like.
Chael Sonnen. Chael P. Sonnen.
Yep.
That dude took steroids and told the court, I was on everything.
Yeah.
What wasn't I on? Put up the list. I'll tell you what I wasn't on. He's like, all of it. All of it. So like what he owned it.
Right.
But what do we love Chael Sonnen.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, I mean, is it the same thing for if another guy owns it and he's, in the same sport? I hope it's the same, but like every other sport, it seems like even if they own it, it doesn't matter. Like your legacy is tainted. It's like everything you've done from this point on means, he took steroids.
And I agree, but to an extent, because it's all subjective and it's all based on who
Who done it?
Who are the critics? Because
true.
Because I see, at least on like my social media, my Twitter, I see a lot of people advocating for Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, Alex Rodriguez. Most people are for them getting into the Hall of Fame, at least what I see on my social media.
Yeah,
right?
and maybe that's just like algorithm and everything, but
exactly.
at the same time.
But all the baseball writers, the ones who are voting for the Hall of Fame votes, they obviously feel a certain type of way about it. So
obviously, or otherwise he would be in the Hall of Fame already. Because he's the home run king.
He's the greatest player of all time.
Oh, we'll just keep it. Well, that's actually kind of a funny way to break it.
Yeah.
I had something in my head though I wanted to talk about because Ben Verlander. Have you seen anything from him on Twitter before?
Yeah.
So Ben Verlander tweeted that he was disgusted with the whole Josh Naylor celebration.
I saw you tweet about that.
Yeah,
I thought that celebration was awesome.
So that's the thing is, you and I are and I'm not saying anything for Ben Verlander. I don't know the guy, but what I said on Twitter was, if we are to enjoy the game, we need to grow with it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to be naive and say that this is disrespectful, which it was, but is it a part of the game? Yes, it is. It's a part of culture. It's not even a part of the game. It's a part of culture, because that's the thing I said. If you're going to be naive and just realize that there are celebrations in other sports that can make their way and transition horizontally to other sports, if you're just going to be naive, then you're never going to enjoy the game. You're never going to grow.
Yeah, I mean, it's the new part of the game. This is the new game. They are letting people celebrate in the MLB right now because, everybody knows that sells tickets, that gets viewership. Seeing stuff like that.
I want that Josh Naylor Topps baseball card of him.
Whether you hate it, whether you love it, you saw it, you watched it, and that's the whole point.
Hell yeah.
And that's what the MLB should be going for, whether it's critics or whether it's people in support. 100%. They just need eyes, because it's a sport that I feel like has been losing viewership, and just like other sports, they need to keep it, entertaining for the fans. So
all through college, I didn't remember watching a baseball game with the boys. I mean, we would watch hockey, we would watch football.
Right.
We would play Chell and play Madden, or we weren't going out of our way to play a long-winded baseball game.
Right. And I feel like the only memorable baseball games is like playoff baseball. I love playoff baseball.
100%. 2016, watching the Cubs win the World Series.
Oh my God, that
was hype.
That was awesome.
That was so cool. I mean, seeing LeBron James literally nearly fall over, doing like over the railing, doing that celebration,
and he's not even a Cubs fan. That's the funniest part.
That was when Jose Ramirez hit that home run, right?
For the
Cleveland Guardians.
Yeah. Don't dead name them.
I almost
dead
named a baseball team.
Yeah, we would have got banned.
I got canceled on my 5th episode of my podcast.
Yeah, it would have been over with. The whole career in the dumps.
I just broke through my normal 3-episode threshold, and now I'm getting canceled. Wow, damn, that's alright.
Sorry, no, you didn't say it though. You didn't say.
You're right. I said Guardians, so we're good. The Guardians, but yeah, no, he was celebrating Jose Ramirez hitting that home run. Or no, it was what's that dude's name?
Franmil Reyes.
No, it was a guy who's a speedy guy. He's an outfielder. Oh God.
Miles Straw. They got.
Well, this was back in 2016.
2016. Yeah, I'm trying to think of.
I can't even remember. Everybody who's watching this knows who hit it, because if they are watching it and they are Cleveland fans, they can just be like, "Oh, this is the guy."
Yep.
I don't know Cleveland lore. Sorry. I can name you like everybody from like the 2007 roster, the Minnesota Twins. But I'm sorry, I can't name
the outfielder.
I was recently testing my memory, because I remembered a game that you, me, Dad, and Grandpa went to. Mm-hmm. Our grandfather is a notorious Green Bay Packer and Chicago White Sox fan.
Crazy.
We talked about earlier that we're all Minnesota Vikings fans. I don't know how he doesn't spontaneously combust into flames with those two teams like living inside of him.
Right.
He brings his Green Bay Packer blanket.
Well, he's just such a nice guy. That's why.
I don't know, man. But he brought us to a game, and he tried to get us Mike's Hard Lemonade.
Yep. I will never forget that. That was hilarious. He was just trying to get us regular lemonade.
Yeah, and he's so innocent. Our grandfather is one of the most lovable, most kind-hearted guys of all time. He was just trying to get his grandsons some lemonade.
Yep.
And he went to the bar on accident, the bar section of the food area, and he got Mike's hard lemonade when he just asked for a lemonade. And my mom, our mom, definitely caught that the right amount of time.
Yep. We would have drank that.
That game would have been way more fun. Because, well, and I remembered that game, and I remember what year it was, and I remembered the date, and I remembered the pitchers.
Who was it?
This was Jose Garcia versus Johan Santana.
Okay.
This is August, late August, like 28th or 29th or something like that, in like 2006.
Wow.
The game was a pitcher's duel because we didn't get a single hit until the bottom of the 8th inning, and it was, and you're gonna love Jock Jones,
my guy,
number 11, right fielder.
Guy. That's our guy,
lefty. So that whole game, Johan was throwing well. He gave up 3 hits. If I remember correctly, it was 3 hits and no runs. We only had 1 hit the entire game, and it was that Jock Jones home run in the bottom of the 8th. Johan goes in the top of or Joe Nathan comes in top of the 9th, closes it out.
I feel like that's like the main thing I remember from those Twins games is Joe Nathan, because it was hard for me at a young age to watch the whole game. So I just really remember watching the end. I don't know. I think it's allergies or something that's in my eyes, but I'm fine.
You're
all right. Good. Yep.
I mean, it is also an audio podcast, so that also helps.
Sweet.
I mean, audio listeners obviously get a better experience. Maybe, I don't know. This is a good view.
Yeah, this is a good view.
Might have to do this again.
2 good-looking guys
using our parents' basement to just create a podcast. Yeah. Well, this is, like I said, episode 5 of my podcast. I'm gonna try to break the threshold of, like I said, of all the I get in my ways. Like I find ideas I like to do and I just stop executing them.
Yep.
Like the whole outfit idea, I'm not gonna give up on that. Like new episodes from sporadically are gonna have like where my guest chooses my outfit, and it's just gonna be ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious.
Maybe on a future episode you'll have to choose my outfit.
Yeah,
and
I'm totally down.
You could make me a whole advertisement for Complete Athlete Podcast.
Yep.
You could do whatever you want. You can do what my fiance did and buy me these 49-cent slides that are actually the most.
Those are 49 cents.
49 cents
wow.
from Old Navy.
That's awesome.
Economical flex.
Yeah, those are sweet.
Financially independent, or no, that's the wrong thing. Financially stable flex.
There you go.
You know what? I'm trying to save money out here right now.
Yeah.
I live with my fiance. I'm trying to purchase a wedding. So if this podcast can help not only get me away from my current job, if I could do this and like produce podcasts for you guys and do content for just you guys only, get paid from maybe Gabe a little bit, but then like just the revenue of that stuff online, merch and stuff like that. I have a logo coming up. I paid a graphic artist to work on that for me. The Taylor Price podcast is going to have its own logo and shit.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to do merch on like hats and stuff. Like,
you're trying to live the dream, man.
I want to do this. I mean, I tweeted this out the other day. I was like, what if I wouldn't have gave up content creating?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it just goes back to like the bad friends I had. And I'm sure you know who those people were. And I don't know if you were big fans of them ever. I mean, they were okay people.
Yeah.
But like they backstabbed me.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know this story.
I mean, you've told me a few stories, but
the main story that happened, the reason that I got backstabbed was I was going over to this dude's house to hang out with them all the time.
Right.
And this is where my main best friend, I'm not going to name who he is, was staying.
Right.
And you remember I even housed that guy.
Right.
For a moment in time. Like that dude was like a brother.
Right.
I took care of him.
Right.
He was going over there all the time and using our other friend to just live there. And I was going over there after work, late night at Jet's Pizza. I'm closing. It's like 1 a.m. I want to go hang out with my friends, play video games, play Fortnite, hang out.
Right.
I get there and I can see the lights are on because it's that main room that they hang out in. Like you pull up and you can see everybody in there.
Right.
I get to the door and it's locked. So I walk back out to the window, which is open.
Right.
And I go, hey, guys, it's me. Open the door.
Right.
Lights go off. And I hear, and I'm like, are you serious? Like, I can hear you.
Right.
What's up, Pops? Doing a podcast. A little bit. It's okay. I don't mind. Cool. Where's the chowder? Or it's in there? Okay. Sweet. I like your sweatshirt. I want to get one.
The apparel shop is open.
Oh, at the Complete Athlete. We're at CompleteAthleteTraining.com.
CompleteAthleteApparel.com.
There. See, I'm learning myself. I'm the producer of their podcast. I should know these things. And there's a holiday coming up, so I should definitely get that stuff. Yes.
Yeah, we should send some links to the parents.
Exactly.
Thanks, Dad.
Good idea, Pops.
Ref a good game.
Yeah, he's refereeing a football game here. Love that guy.
I just remembered it's MEA week.
Oh, yeah.
So I think Wednesday is the last day of school for these kids.
Okay.
When we graduated high school, we stopped knowing anything about school anymore, right? Because why would we?
I pretended like it didn't exist.
Exactly. But now that I work with kids that are in school again, so now I know this stuff again. And so it's MEA week for the kids. And
MEA in Minnesota is like one of the big weeks. I remember that. Like that was like a week that we definitely spent a lot. I mean, with the friends I was talking about now, like I would spend that week with these guys.
Yeah, no, that's a crazy story.
I mean, it's weird because when you're friends with somebody for so long and you like watch them just backstab you right in front of you, you have no way to react. Yeah. I started texting the guy who lived there who was sleeping at the time. Yeah. And he's like, screw you, I was asleep. Yeah. And I was like, well, like, go talk to our friend. And he's like, no. And I'm like, all right, screw both of you guys. Yeah. Then. Yeah. So I literally just stopped talking to him.
Because I mean, as you should. I mean, that's just kind of a shitty thing to do to somebody.
Yeah, and I ended up going, and this is after I had given the guy a second chance. I didn't talk to him for a whole summer, a previous year before that. Right. I cut that dude off once before, and he told me that he was gonna be a better guy. He's gonna get a job, right? Which he never did. Mm-hmm. He never had a job. Mm-hmm. I paid for that dude's meals like half the time. Right. So like the fact that he would go out of his way to backstab me was just like. I'm like, okay, all right, cool. So I had built a channel with that guy. I had gone through branding and gone through all this stuff with this guy. I was like, this is how you're gonna play me.
I mean, it sucks, but at the end of the day, it's a learning lesson, right?
I grew way better into what I ended up going and doing a bunch of cool stuff after that, and that's where I'm at now. Is I wouldn't have had those experiences had I not been I was single at the time, and then I was like, you know what, I'm going to go explore and do a bunch of crazy stuff in the world. And I did. So the best part of that was learning that you can have a bad thing happen to you and you can always get better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I went on to get a better job, get set up where I'm at now, where I have a fiance and I'm 2 years in, and I'm preparing for a wedding here in the following year. So yeah, I've grown a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. You can either let things break you or make you better, and it made you better. So
I wouldn't have gotten better, and I wouldn't have had support if our family wasn't so awesome. We definitely have an insane support system, and I don't think anybody. I start to realize that when my fiance's, talking to me about she's a middle child. Right. I feel like anybody who's a middle child, and I'm shout out to you. We see you. We can see you, even though your parents can't. Middle childs get treated like shit. Yeah. We don't have if we had a middle sibling, I can't imagine the shit that he would have got. Because you being the youngest, we and me just us two, we had it was always you, me, and mom and dad's Disney World was easy. Right. 4 tickets. Mm-hmm. 2 beds. You and I shared a bed all the time. Yep. You kicked the shit out of me. You would kick in your sleep.
Yeah, I remember. I remember you telling me that. I don't remember doing it, but I remember you telling me
that.
Yeah,
you were asleep. Yep. Well, at the Ritz-Carlton, you kicked me out of bed, and I landed on the floor, and I was like, this is the only place where I'm okay with landing on the floor. Because the floor was so soft.
That was a far drop, though. Those beds were tall.
Yeah, that's how nice the floors were. I landed on the floor and probably just went, huh. And felt like a feather because, bro, opening that door into the pool at the Ritz-Carlton.
Yeah, that was some fancy living. That was fun.
If that's a goal in life, is to be able to go back to that hotel and be able to just hang out with the boys there.
Yeah, afforded ourselves, not from our parents.
That would be that's just the goal with life in general. But if I could put a life goal on the podcast and the Complete Athlete podcast and stuff, it would be to help it fund a fun vacation for all the boys. Mm-hmm. And just because of all the hard work that we put into telling stories about all these kids in the area, helping them grow into better adults and baseball players and basketball players too. You guys have that, and I think that's something that I want to talk about too. Is you guys have basketball, you guys are evolving to other sports.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why Gabe, he named it complete athlete training. He didn't put anything baseball in there because he wanted the door to be open for those other sports, those other avenues. I feel like if we did spend more time marketing our other sports, we could go further with that, and I think that will still be an option with Gabe. I just think he kind of got focused on other stuff that he needed to do. I'm sure we'll make our way back to there because I think we have 2, maybe 3 customers that do basketball sessions, and that's about it. We did fast pitch softball.
Right, I saw that
girls
too.
as well. That's always fun. That's easy to translate, especially hitting wise. And as trainers, we do a lot of underhand throws to our players, so
they're kind of seeing the same angles.
Yeah, so that works perfect for the softball girls. They're seeing the ball come up on them, so that's pretty easy to do batting practice with them and fielding and stuff. Obviously, we're not going to teach them how to pitch unless we get a real softball coach in there, softball trainer in there. But
that's where we have good resources, being from Spring Lake Park.
Yep.
I think like the alum that we've had that I think we should reach out to. I think Gabe is a very good marketer.
Absolutely.
As well as he was a natural at hosting the podcast.
Yeah, he did really well.
If he could branch out into that and get like some of the girls from the softball team from our era, from his and I graduating from 2012, that would be impressive.
I think that'd be super cool.
I'll do golf.
Yeah, exactly. This is open up to everything. This is about being a complete athlete.
Yeah.
Some of our stuff, like we have some winter programs that it's going to be mostly baseball kids. I mean, I bet you it's going to be all baseball kids right now, but not only do some of these baseball kids play other sports, like they play basketball, they play football, or whatever. We have strength and conditioning programs that players from any sport could benefit from. So, someone who doesn't even play baseball, if they only play basketball or whatever, they only play tennis, soccer, whatever it is, like they absolutely can do our strength and conditioning program because the guy who's running it, Zach Dykes, he is
Zach.
Yeah, he's the wrestling coach and the track coach at Champlin Park, which is kind of cool because Rachel Druby is a teacher there as well. Lacrosse coach there. I think she's a teacher as well, but she's definitely a lacrosse coach.
It's crazy to me that the Drubys played soccer and they were able to translate that into like lacrosse too, because I heard them talking about
Rachel played lacrosse in high school.
I remember that, but that was like it translated well because of her athleticism and stuff like that.
Yeah, dude, lacrosse is a perfect sport for Rachel. We remember her. She's a beast.
If she could play men's lacrosse if she wanted to. She's a beast. She's a menace.
But yeah, Zach knows what he's doing. He knows how to get people faster. He knows how to get them stronger in an athletic sense. And I think it is important to get baseball specific, and we do get baseball specific. But the majority of that stuff is just about becoming a complete athlete.
Yeah.
Which will make you a better baseball player or whatever sport you play,
I think baseball players are one of the best athletes. I wouldn't say they are the best athletes, but they're close. I mean, hockey players are always very, very good athletes when it comes to translating to other sports, but man, it all
depends on what your definition of athlete is, cuz
if you're talking about like ball sports,
I would say skilled. Baseball players are more skilled. I think hockey players are very skilled as well because of the stick handling that goes on with the puck.
Well, then being able to skate and do everything at the same time. But then the physicality too and the toughness, like that's why I think hockey players, like their willingness to go through like torment basicing for their sport.
Yep. But if we're talking about being an athlete as in jumping, running, doing athletic movements, I guess. I mean, basketball, football.
True. I don't know. Baseball players have always been able to translate into those. Why do you think? I mean, I wouldn't say that like Deion Sanders was a baseball player first.
I mean, yeah, the examples that you can give are all guys who have played
too,
and they've played sports their whole life, like both sports their whole life. I mean.
Michael Jordan going from basketball to baseball.
It's very biased. It's very subjective, and it's a fun argument.
Yeah,
I think to talk about, but it's like, it's one of those things that it's an opinion. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the whole point of a podcast.
I understand that, but I'm talking about how just like, it's so subjective of who is the most athletic.
Okay, Switzerland. Just kidding.
Because what's the definition of athletic?
True. I mean, this is where I was gonna go. Was like, if you think about it, like MMA guys like Cyril Gahn can fucking dunk, and he could do between the legs 360. Like he could do he could play basketball.
Yeah,
he'd be a fucking power forward probably.
I mean, it's too late now, but like if he would have started earlier, then yeah, probably.
True, but his athleticism would at least would be giving him an advantage.
This is the thing, though, is that this is why I don't think baseball is, and even basketball a little bit, is not really just about being an athlete. It's like it's also about being skilled and having, like, I don't think having touch on a shot or having precise location on a pitch, I don't think that is athleticism as much as it is being skillful and
at an activity. Like you're skillful at like an aspect of the sport that like, that's where pitchers like blow my mind. Pitchers are almost like punters to me in a different way, because even though punters don't get to perform as often, pitchers perform way more often. But like you're a specialized,
specializing.
Unless you're Shohei Ohtani, I mean the best pitcher you can think that bats. Not besides Shohei Ohtani, who can you think of? Like Noah Syndergaard.
Yeah, Noah Syndergaard.
Madison Bumgarner.
DeGrom.
Bartolo Colon.
No, he was terrible except for that one.
Come on.
One home run.
Come on.
He's definitely my favorite, that's for sure.
But no, yeah, it's like you're right. Like there's going to be more athletic things done in basketball and football, especially more physical things done in football.
Mm-hmm.
But like you can't say LeBron James going to go from basketball to football. I think he.
Oh yeah, for sure. But again, that's somebody who played football in high school.
I mean, that's where like I think of like the athletes I admire, and all of them did play. You're right, they all did play high school football, but like, so did Joe Mauer. Joe Mauer would have been probably one of the best quarterbacks in college football.
Yeah, I think it has to do with the position that you're playing as well.
Okay.
The one thing about football is the fact that you have to know all these plays, which is pretty tough. But again, if you're a smart athlete who can figure out baseball or basketball plays, you should be able to figure out football plays, right?
Yeah.
And when it comes to just running a route and catching the ball, that's just, to me, that's more. It takes skill, but it's more pure athleticism than say trying to hit a 95 mile per hour two-seamer at the plate. You can't just rely on your athleticism to do that. You know what I mean? You have to have
hand-eye coordination.
You have to have precise timing. Your mechanics need to be there so that your barrel can be through the zone as long as possible, so you give yourself the best chance to make contact.
And that's where like pure athleticism doesn't just give you hand-eye coordination. Yeah. I mean, I think something that was cool about our family, we were gifted good hand-eye coordination, and we all worked on it.
Yep.
I don't know anybody in our family that like didn't at least try to work on it.
Yeah.
But from an early age, like all of us had pretty good hand-eye coordination. I worked on that.
I totally agree, and I think it's something that everybody should work on. But I have seen a lot of people who are. This happens a lot in baseball. Who have really good hand-eye coordination, who are really skilled. I'm kind of thinking about myself here as well, but they rely on that, and it gets them far enough. By the time they're in high school, by the time they're in ninth grade, it gets them far enough because if you're skillful at that age, you're going to be ahead of majority of the kids. But high school is when kids who are playing baseball, who are also playing football,
right,
who are lifting and getting stronger, that's where they might have been less skilled, but that's where their velocities and their strength and their athleticism starts to take over.
Yeah.
And catch up with the more skilled players, because the skilled players are relying on their skills and not really in the gym. And then the other ones are in the gym because of another sport for the most part. And it's just, happening that it's making them better at baseball because, you get strong at, it's going to help you in almost any sport, really. So
yeah. And a guy I think about from our high school that went from not playing baseball, but he played up until 8th grade. Then he was playing football the entire time. Steve Bailey.
Yep.
Steve Bailey came back and played when I was a sophomore. Basically, he essentially took my spot my sophomore year because I was going to be the starting center fielder.
I remember that. Yep.
I ended up playing like a bench role pretty much the entire year, my 10th grade year. I played a lot of JV in 10th grade as well. I got to play a lot. I didn't practice a single day in my 10th grade year.
That's nice, just playing games.
I literally played every day of the week. I got to play a game because 10th grade was on the off day of the JV and varsity games. So when I get called up to varsity a few games to like pinch run or play left field, like I got pinch hit 4. And that was just because we had so many good guys. And like the one guy that I knew I was a better hitter than, but because he had better physicals and better velocities, was Steve Bailey.
Steve Bailey, yeah.
I was a 10 times better hitter than him.
Yeah, because you never quit. You were getting training with. You already had good hand-eye coordination.
And I proved it earlier in the year. We went to the Metrodome, and we were playing against Blaine. And this is the game where everyone knows. I know the pitcher on the other side. Adam Rexeidler was the kid who we were talking about when we were talking about the Little League World Series. I knew that kid that went there. I played against him all the time.
Right.
So who better to go up there for me to go up and showcase my skills against, to show that my coach, like, hey, I know what I'm talking about. And he told me not to use a 33-inch bat, too. This is Coach Holmgren. I loved him, too, by the way.
Yeah, I liked Holmgren.
He told me not to use a 33-inch bat. This is the combat that I bought from Joe Boyce. All gray, beautiful combat. I looked like Mookie Betts, basically, up there. I ripped a double off the wall at the Metrodome on the fly. It was one of my favorite memories in baseball, playing at the Metrodome. We lost a game.
Were you guys playing like 4 a.m?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was the game that we played. Literally, I had to wake up at 2 a.m. to get to wake up, take a shower, go to SLP and practice in the gym to warm up, so that when we got on the bus, we could take a nap, and then we were not like cold when we got to the field because we didn't have a lot of time to warm up.
Right.
But I remember getting to center field and like looking up and being like,
that had to have been so
bro.
cool.
Being in center field in the same spot where I knew Kirby Puckett,
Torrey Hunter.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
2 of my idols. Two of the greatest center fielders of all time. And you know how many times you and I bounced our bodies off of that center field wall. Little League Day, we got to go to we get to be on the field and everything. So now that I'm actually on the field and I get to see how much space there is, it's a lot bigger in person. Holy shit, 408 dead center. And that big bag basically is a wall, but it was a bag in right field. That's a lot taller in person. You don't realize that. And
that was like our green monster or blue monster.
Yeah,
right,
it was it's a deep alley. And I didn't remember how deep it was until we played another game later there on in the VFW. And Jake Mathis hit an inside the park grand slam to the right field alley.
That's
not
crazy.
Down the line. Literally, it took him so long to get to the right field alley because the center fielders were playing a little bit on Jake Mathis, which they clearly didn't do their scouting. We lost that game 13-12.
Oh, wow.
13-12.
It's a good game.
Oh, it was great. I scored so many runs. I got to cross home plate where Kirby Puckett got to cross home plate. I got to pitch on the mound where Jack Morris threw 10 innings. Like Dad has pictures of that. Like the fact that they tore that place down breaks my heart.
Yeah, a lot of memories there. That's for sure.
We went to so many games as kids. I feel like we were blessed to have a dad who is in love with sports.
Absolutely, especially Minnesota.
I mean, we scalped tickets from when we were kids. Like we would be in the cold, like 12-degree weather, blizzard. Me, and Dad just sitting outside the Metrodome, like we need 3 tickets. We're buying
scalping tickets. Yep.
And Dad would always be scalping tickets. I remember we had 4 tickets in like the upper bowl, and we were trying to we had 2 tickets from the upper bowl, and we were trying to get a 3rd ticket in the upper bowl. And we were going to try to trade those for all tickets together.
Right.
Dad had like no success. The game's about to start. And I see this guy on the phone to like our right. And he's looking over at Dad. He's kind of like slowly peeking at him. And Dad walks over, and I remember tugging on him and being like, hey, check out this guy. He's like, what do you need? And he's like, my dad's like, I got 2 tickets in the upper. He didn't even get to say upper. And he's like, I got 4 in the lower. And like, he's like, if you give me those 2 and $50, I'll do it. And I saw our dad's face just light up, like a beacon in the middle of this blizzardy day. And he's like, Deal. Gave him $50, and we got 4 tickets. Know what Dad did with that 4th ticket? Sold it for $50.
That's hilarious. That's awesome. That's a hustler right there.
Our dad got us lower level seats, and we were in the end zone. And this is the game that the Denver Broncos played the Minnesota Vikings when Randy Moss pitched the ball over his shoulder to Mo Williams at halftime, and he ran it in. We were in that end zone.
The crazy part is I was too young to even barely remember this stuff.
Oh, my God. It's so crazy I remember that stuff because, like, I think about all the times when we went to those games and, like, we're on the Jumbotron or, like, we were on that a lot.
Timberwolves. I remember the Timberwolves game that we
painted our faces and stuff.
Yep. Yeah.
We were, what, like, row 3 and 2?
Yeah. We were pretty much courtside. That was fun.
We watched him win that game, and we were with Ryan because it was for his birthday, and we had to, like, go up and down because we had to, but we were in the second half, so we got to see the good part of the game.
Yeah.
And Minnesota was on our side, so I remember that.
Yeah, that was fun.
And we got on FSN North. The people from the network came down and asked us, like, hey, in 45 seconds you're gonna be on. You just do the thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, you and me just kind of like looked at each other like,
yeah,
okay,
let's do it. Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, number 1.
Yeah. That was a good time.
Man, we were
face painted. We
were definitely big sports fans back then. And we still are, but like we were way more intense. Like we watched every game. Like I feel like there wasn't a.
And most of that was just influence from Dad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
We were doing whatever he was doing. You know.
Dad was a big Vikings fan, and it's sad to see that he's like kind of lost his luster on that one.
Yeah, I don't know if he lost being a Vikings fan. He just doesn't watch the games anymore because it gives him too much anxiety. He says.
When he said that he was going to be a St. Louis Rams fan.
That was hilarious.
That was the bridge being crossed of no hope.
Yeah.
Like he can't. I think that contributed to some of his hair loss. It had to have. Like the stress of us losing in '98, and then again when Blair Walsh missed, and then again, like just again and again and again. He's like, I can't fucking take it anymore.
That man lost his hair earlier than that, dude.
No, I know, but. I shouldn't make jokes either. Both of us, our hairs are thinning, so we shouldn't talk about that.
That's our dad, so he gave us those genetics. You know.
Well, they say it's your mom's dad, but I don't know if it
they say that, but then that has no science. It's just genetics. Whoever, it could be anyone. Just like you get genetics from one person of what, like. It is what it is. Like, you know, someone might have freckles in the family, so you get freckles, and the other person doesn't. You know, it's just genetics.
I popped something out. I can't hear it. Can you still hear me, though?
Yeah, I can hear
you.
Okay. You can't hear?
I can't hear myself anymore. That's fine. Something went. I don't care. As long as you can hear me, that's all that matters.
Yep.
Yeah. Because the thing about Dad that I love is his willingness to like bring his sons like to every game. Like. Yep. That had to have cost a lot of money, and I'm thankful that he was willing to, like forego a lot of things that he probably was interested in. But I mean,
for the most part, that's the stuff he was interested in. Yeah. I mean, he was he coached us a lot. Anytime he wasn't coaching us, he would be at every game. You know what I mean?
Right.
He sure enjoyed coming to the games for sure, but he definitely just loved us and was supporting us. You know.
Well, I make that joke with him about him going to Game 7 of the '91 World Series.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how did you watch any of our games?
Yeah.
And show any excitement?
Yeah, but then again, when you have your own kid, it's different. Like when you have somebody you know, like when you just watch like a high school game, but it's somebody you know, it's very entertaining.
I told you I caught a VFW game while Spring Lake Park was playing this summer by myself. I just was driving by the field because I lived close, and I stopped. I just watched the game.
At Wintercrest or where?
At Spring Lake Park High School.
At Spring Lake Park High School? Nice. Yeah.
I just stopped by and watched, and I was like nobody I know on the field at all. And I was just like.
But, I mean, then again, it's your alumni. It's your school, so it makes it a little.
And I get that.
Skin in the game.
But I like making that joke to Dad.
Yeah.
Because he went to the greatest game of all time.
It's a really good point. It's a very good point.
And baseball historians talk about it. And they're like, yeah, it's kind of hard to forget about Game 7, '91. Like, 2012, the Cardinals games. That was a good game. But '91, Jack Morris threw 10 innings in the World Series. No one's ever done that. It's like, well, in the live ball era.
Right.
I looked that up.
Right.
There was a pitcher that threw like 16 innings in the World Series back in like the 30s or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, but in the live ball era, where like pitchers are getting hit a little bit more, especially back then.
That reminds me. Do you remember Justin Weber on my team?
Yep.
He had hemophilia, so his blood didn't clot as much or whatever, so his arm didn't get as sore when he pitched.
Really? Because he played with me.
Yeah, he was freshman pitching for varsity because he was a stud.
He was one of our aces.
Yeah,
that year.
he was a stud, and he had a career at Bethel that went short because of a ground ball that he took in the ankle, like some point in high school. It still didn't heal because of his hemophilia.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so in the end, he got by his hemophilia, but he was using it to his advantage.
Because his arm would never get
It wouldn't get tired. So we had this one game against Wyzetta, 9th grade, summer, traveling ball. We play 7-inning games. This game goes into 12 innings. It's a pitcher's duel between Wyzetta's pitcher and our pitcher. They both went the complete game. But we won 1-0 in 12 innings.
Wow.
And both pitchers pitched the entire game. And Justin was like, yeah, my arm doesn't hurt at all. And I guarantee that other kid's arm was killing. But
I threw 140 pitches in a game.
I've thrown 144 pitches in a game before.
I only got to I got thinking like 141 or something like that. And that was against Benilde St. Margaret my sophomore year. That year I was playing on 3 teams. So I had no days off. So my arm was dead.
That's one thing I remember about high school baseball, or just my entire youth career. There was almost zero emphasis on arm care.
We didn't take care of it.
There was pitch counts. That was it. It was pitch counts. But then high school, there was no pitch counts.
Know what I got recently that brought back so much nostalgia? Speaking of that, Tiger Balm.
Tiger Balm.
It's that stuff that's like icy hot, but 10 times stinging.
Yeah.
So I used that instead of icing half the time.
Right.
My fiance's neck has been in a crazy kink, and I saw Tiger Balm at Target, and I was like,
brought back some memories.
I had a flashback on the bus with Coach Mason. Remember, we gotta do this, okay? You do this, okay? This, okay? This, okay? And I'm just sitting there, just rubbing my elbow. Right. And I'm like,
that's funny that you say that because you remember him saying okay all the time.
More than anything else.
I don't blame him anymore. Like back then, I was like, dang, that's annoying. He says okay all the time. Every trainer I've noticed, I say stuff, and I don't just say the same word every time, but like week by week, it kind of changes where I have like one word that I just keep saying. Like one week, I just kept calling on my players buddy. I was just calling him buddy.
I feel like that's emphasis of dad too, because dad.
I don't know what it is, man.
He says bud.
I just kept. I have these words. It's like the vocab word of the week or something that I'll be talking to my kid and I'll be like, all right, and I'm just like, dang it, I'm doing the Coach Mason thing again. And when we say Coach Mason, his last name was Mason.
This is the real Coach Mason.
This is Coach Mason Price. I don't like being Coach Price because that's dad. I don't like being Coach Mason.
I thought about that in the car on the way here. I was like, what would I be called? I'd be Coach Taylor.
You'd just be Coach Taylor.
Yeah. Because Coach Price is like, that's
Coach
our dad.
Price, that's our dad. Coach Mason, that's our high school coach that we had at one point.
That we don't like.
We didn't like at the time. You still might not like him. I look back on a lot of things and I realize, where my mistakes were and stuff like that. I liked the fact that he was a baseball guy. So at the end of the day, I look back at it and I realized he wasn't nearly as bad as I thought.
There was a lot of likable qualities about
Absolutely.
Coach Mason. I will not say it. The only bad thing I have to say is how it ended.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, because
I remember that story with you, and he was the type of guy that would literally test you. Like,
yeah,
it didn't matter if you're the best player on the team. If he thought that you might have an attitude problem,
except for Jake Mathis.
Okay, when you're a D1 athlete,
so yeah,
all the parents are gonna get on you for not starting that kid.
Your point is actually right though, because me being the best player besides Jake, he put the expectations on me that I needed to set a precedent. Like I need to be better, because if I'm better, then it'll show my other teammates like this is how you pave the way.
Right.
So I agree with his message. It was how he delivered.
Yeah, I don't think you should be purposely testing young adults to testing their character as much as you should just try and help build their character. You shouldn't be trying to test their character, because if they fail that one test, whether it's from you or from them, that might end their career.
100%. That is a very, very insightful point, because that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
That is 100% what happened. I mean, the skinny on what happened was he kicked me out of practice the day before a section game.
Mm-hmm.
And the game that we played was very important. And obviously he wanted to emphasize keeping our control and keeping our composure under pressure. The whole point of him testing me in that practice was to get me, the most vocal of all of his players, to calm down and not react to something bad happening. And I agreed with that message. That was the whole point of the practice. But when you're blatantly getting on players or not getting on certain players for it and only getting on one, like, then your message is disingenuous. Then you're clearly targeting, and like that's like I got that right off the bat. I had that feeling. So when the incident happens and I, am not actually even talking to him and he comes at me regardless, I'm like, obviously I'm getting defensive. I'm a kid. I'm 18 years old. When your coach yells at you, you're going to get a little defensive.
Mm-hmm.
But still to this day, and I wish this incident never happened, I wish that I would have just told him, hey, I'm sorry, I'll get better.
I'm so glad you said that, because even if you didn't even feel that way, even if you weren't sorry, even if you didn't feel that way, you have to play the game sometimes. And my hope is that no grown adult, especially when you're like 30 years old, has to kiss anyone's ass anymore.
Right.
But unfortunately, unless you're just like the chosen one, or you're just super like just special, whether it's your talent or just whatever your personality, something, there's certain people out there that everyone just knows they're going to be like a star or whatever, they're going to be amazing at whatever they do. But if you're just kind of like above average regular person, you have to play the game. It has to be a political game that you have to, especially
even on the baseball field, which is nuts.
Not even on the baseball field, especially on the baseball field, especially in sports in general. When it comes to high school sports, I tell all my high school players this stuff, because as soon as you get to high school, what you do in high school outside of the sport directly affects how your playing time and what happens in the sport.
Believe it or not, your coach sees everything.
Everything. If you get an F on a test in your freshman year or whatever, you could sit out that game until that F is away, or until you lose that F. You know what I mean? Or
until you've learned your lesson that like you need to study a little bit more.
And there's gonna be coaches. It's impossible. We're all humans. We all know how we work. There's gonna be coaches out there that have favorites, or they have people they don't necessarily like, and they're gonna do a little bit of extra to make it harder on them, kind of like the examples we've been giving. And you can't react the wrong way. You can't react the way they want, because then they win.
That's 100% that scenario too, because when you're a kid, you don't almost get to realize that, and I think that's where you're in like a great position, and maybe that's a story I can tell these kids. Absolutely, it's like we're in a great position to inform these kids that like, hey, this scenario may happen to you.
Yeah.
Be prepared to know like that you're still right, but like they are making a point off of you, and like you need to be the example.
Yeah, you said it great, and it's unfair. It sucks, but that's life. And sometimes you have to sacrifice your ego, your beliefs, or whatever it is. Sometimes, not all the time. When you're a high schooler and you just don't have the authority.
Yeah,
it's sometimes you have to, and even if you're just doing it for show, that's okay. That's totally fine. I'd rather you keep your belief system. I'd rather you still believe that you're right when you are right. But you have to play the game. You have to put your best. I think of like sports players who get interviewed or whatever. Like they don't say what they think.
They're acting 100%.
They're playing a role.
Hockey players are so good at interviews.
So good. They're just being a politician, and that's the extra stuff that you need to learn to do in order to make it ahead. My favorite thing I say, this is my like motto. If you can't or instead of just learning from your own mistakes, it's even better to learn from someone else's mistakes that you look up to.
Yeah, I've heard you say that, and you said that on the first episode of the Complete Athlete podcast, and I was like, man, it got me thinking while I'm even 29, like I feel like that still rings true.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter what age you are.
There's always going to be someone older than you that we look up to, like Dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That, you know, not only can we follow all the great things he did, but we can also learn from his mistakes, learn from our own mistakes, and then hopefully teach the younger generation to learn from our mistakes. You're still going to make your own mistakes that you're going to have to learn from, but hopefully they're completely different ones than the ones that you're looking up to's mistakes, because you're smart and you learn from our mistake. Don't lose the game of you know, like sucking up to somebody, kissing ass because of your ego.
Yeah.
You have a goal, and that's to play baseball at the highest level, whatever it is. Play your sport at the highest level. You got to sacrifice your ego. You got to play the game. That's the best way I can put it. You have to play the game.
I will say I did still play the next day.
Good. There you go.
I was too good not to keep off the field, which is the most hilarious thing, because when he's reading off the lineup and he puts me still on the field and he's like, you're starting left. And I'm like, where I've been all season, huh? That's funny how you kick me out of practice, tell me I'm not going to play, and the next day you realize, oh, this is an important game. I should probably keep him there.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the way the world works, man.
Well, he lit a fire, and maybe that was his goal, was to light a fire under me, because I had one of my best games that day. I was the only kid who didn't strike out to a D1 pitcher that day, a kid who went on to play at Purdue, who's in the athletics minor league system right now. Like,
so when you put it that way, then you can almost look back with more, you know, confidence that maybe you didn't like it at the time, but maybe he did make the right decision.
His point came across, and like I said from the beginning, like I always understood his message. It was how he delivered it. And it's like, if you're gonna pick on one kid, especially the best one, like, spread the love. Like, you were given our worst player, our shortstop, like, every time he would make a bad play, you just give him the benefit of the doubt. And it's like, at some point you're coddling this kid, and he needs to get better. We need to do something to change.
And sometimes as a coach, you need to know your players enough that, like, you and me, I think we're sensitive. We are prideful.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I think as a coach, you have to understand that. And if you're still trying to make an example or test somebody or bring the best out of somebody, you have to make sure you're not overdoing it. You're not pushing that player away. You're not...
Tell me I'm sensitive again.
We're both sensitive.
What do you mean? I'm not sensitive. What do you mean?
Exactly.
I wanted to say that so badly, but I'm like, at the same time, you're right. Like, if we didn't have the coaches we had growing up, I don't think we would be as good of players as we were. But at the same time, I feel like I was a little bit coddled. Like, some of the coaches I had didn't test me to the furthest extent of my knowledge. And now that I'm looking back, Coach Mason wanted the best out of me, but he just didn't deliver it in the right way.
Exactly.
But no coach knows the right way.
I agreed. I don't know the right way.
We're just trying our best.
We're trying. That's why in order to be the best coach or trainer you can be, you have to never feel like you know everything. You can't be like all these freaking umpires that I deal with as a coach and as a player who
you're talking to a former umpire here,
who always think they're right no matter what. And that's why Dad is the greatest umpire of all time, because he is willing to admit to anybody that, hey, I might have made a mistake there, but it is what it is. I can't take it back. You know what I mean? And I'm going to try my best to do better.
He's the reason why, like, I think I was at least a decent umpire. One thing, I can hold my hat on. In the state of Montana, I have the record for the youngest umpire to umpire in districts. Right. I was 19 years old. Yeah. I was still playing baseball, but I had my shoulder was giving me fits after high school, not taking care of it and stuff like that. So it's a forewarning. I also separated it twice. So, but I wanted to give back to baseball. So I was like, you know what? Dad was really good at umpiring. And when you and I umpired Little League, and I thought we were okay at it, we at least know the rules enough to be able to be like, hey, we can go.
And we have that same personality as Dad, is that we're willing to admit when we're wrong.
Yeah.
And
I did that immediately. Like it was one of those things that like if you're not like all these younger coaches even in that area were looking at me like, wow, this is a young guy, like, but he's very like he's respectful and he's willing to admit like when he's hey, like what he's seeing, he's at least communicating, and that's a new age.
As a coach and a player, all you want as an umpire is somebody who tries hard, is respectful, who is trying their best to not only not be involved in the game, and like the best umpires are ones you don't even remember. Yeah. That you can't even like, they're not even involved in the game. They're not changed. They're not making their presence felt.
The only way that those kids knew me in Montana was because one of the players on the team, the team that I was staying with, was our cousin. Okay. The only thing that they knew, they didn't even know my name. I loved that because when they finally selected me, they had to be like, oh yeah, the Sydney guy. Yeah. They had to find out what my name was. Yeah. And I think that was cool because like you said, if I'm just a bystander, like you barely know I'm there. I thought about umpiring as like I get a front row seat to a baseball game and I get a little bit of influence being that I get to help officiate the game and make it run smoother. That's the only mindset I could have as an umpire. I wasn't trying to change any outcomes. If some kid was a little ratty with me, like I would tell him, like, "Hey, man, I'm trying my best out here. I'm trying to help you. Like, you don't gotta get mad at me. I don't gotta throw the kid out." Right. I did throw a kid out for bowling over a catcher. Yeah. In an age where this is like right after Buster Posey broke his leg, and this kid just had all the time in the world to just stop and slow down, and he just.
Yeah, that's not okay.
But like I wanted to listen to those kids. Yeah. And I think that's, like you said, the umpire who's trying their best, trying to be honest and willing to admit their mistakes is going to make the game a lot more fun.
Someone who doesn't think they're always right and is willing to always try and get better. Yeah. And that's we made that transition from what makes a good coach and trainer as well. And that's what I take the most pride in, other than kind of like the mental health. How I'm very I find that very important. I think that's something that I always want to involve in my training sessions, is the mental side. But I think my thing that I'm proud about for myself is the fact that I'm always willing to adapt. I never think that I'm the best or that I know everything.
I feel like we've definitely known that, like, and I think that's something that I've heard from other people talk about us. Like they think that we're cocky or confident or whatever it is. And I think it's just like we know our abilities and we're not, but we also know our limitations. And I don't think that people see that part sometimes. It's like they don't see that we know that we're not the best, even though we know that we're good at something.
And most people aren't okay with that. Most people aren't comfortable with that. But I think you and me are, because, we know that this is how you become better.
There's room to grow.
If you don't have that mindset, it's harder to get better. Yeah. And I think we've always known that. And that's with anything, with video games, with sports, with work, with relationships. Like, you can't.
Something I saw online where like people are like, the day and age when people used to see the people at the top of the leaderboards and be like, how can I be like them? Is changed to, oh, that's a hacker.
Yeah. Instantly people start hating, and
it's all hate.
And it's a very natural human emotion, and we all have it in us. But like you said, in the past, we were able to look past that and still.
Well, yeah, it irked me that the guy at the top of the list wasn't me, but at the same time, I wasn't going, fuck you, you're a hacker. I was saying, how do I get better?
Exactly. You looked at yourself first instead of instantly blaming someone else.
Because like we were talking about, the golden era of Call of Duty, like Black Ops 2 for me was that. Because back then you couldn't hack league play. Like if you were high ranked in Champs League, if you were rank 1 in your section of Champs League, like then you were a good player. That was like I got there. I was like, yes.
I just remember league play when I would I would do just enough in all the game modes to have the argument to have that 4th spot on our team. But then when it came to search and destroy, I just took over, and like that was my thing. I was a search and destroy guy.
We were search and destroy all together. I think because of our cousin, and like the 6v6 format for us was always like we could mess around in some of those games and still win. And it was just so funny how good we were back then. Yeah. That like when we would find a good team, we would all sit up and like get all. I mean, we had similar names. I mean, we changed our names to similar multiple times. I mean,
you guys convinced me to change my name to Queen Gangster because we were What was that? The royal flush? We had ace, king, queen, jack, 10.
We were trying to be the royal flush, and nobody wanted to be
I had the highest voice. I had the highest voice. I was the youngest one, so I guess I was queen gangster.
No. I feel so bad because, like, I was number 10. I was 10. Like, I wasn't anything special.
1,000 times better than queen. What do you mean? What do you mean? This was during the 2K8 era when I was ranked.
No.
I was ranked top 500 in the world in 2K8 ranked.
Oh no.
And my name was Queen Gangsta for a couple months.
They probably thought it was a girl.
They probably thought I was a girl. And
oh
God
no,
dang,
dude.
Man.
Hey, well, what was it after that? We did like the Mushroom Kingdom, because Ryan was Mario, Joe was Luigi, I was King Boo.
I remember that one, but I don't remember being a part of that one.
I thought you were like Koopa, because Reedy was Bowser. And he
now
liked
that you say Koopa, it's starting to sound familiar.
I thought you were Koopa.
You might be right. There were so many of though that it's like
we changed our name all the time.
I'll never forget when Ryan's name was Call Me God, and
I took that.
Me and Reedy's little brother, was it Brandon or Sean? Was the younger one? Sean was the younger one. Me and him had this idea to change our names to Call Me Jesus and Call Me Satan. And we didn't tell Ryan. Yeah. We literally just joined him while he was playing by himself. We just joined one of his games. He was playing a Search and Destroy game. And he just goes, "What the hell?" And then just instantly quits and then changes his name.
I remember that.
We costed him $5.
Yeah, he was so upset.
He was so mad.
Well, Call Me God. I took that into RuneScape. I was Call Me God 1.
Sick name.
Yeah, I thought that was a great name.
Shout out Ryan Price.
Well, yeah, he came up with like most of the stable names that we had back then. But then, yeah, like you said, like when you guys copied him, like there was a lot of that. There was a lot of like us like fucking with each other back then. We played
good times, man.
We played Michael Myers for hours on end.
I remember when we were playing it right here.
Yeah.
And Grandpa Craig came down, and he was like, "You're playing with Ryan right now?" And we're like, "Yeah." We gave him the headset.
And he was talking.
He was talking to him while we're playing old school Call of Duty, so that you could jump higher on and get to the glitch spots and stuff on the buildings.
We were doing bounce glitches and shit.
Oh man, that was such good times, man.
We would play Michael Myers for hours. And
Nothing
zombies and like because we would get sick of destroying lobbies, like 100 win streaks, and we're just like, you guys want to play Michael Myers?
And at the end of the day, it's like you're just competing when you're playing matchmaking. You just want to like relax sometimes. You know what I mean?
We got to that point where like I'm sure there were games where we messed around a lot.
Everybody gets to that point. There's nobody who can just, because you and me are so competitive. For us to get sick of being competitive and just trying to chill and have fun in a video game,
that takes a lot.
That must mean that everybody feels that way.
Yeah.
So imagine those guys who feel that way all the time, and they have a 9-to-5 job, and then they get home, and then they're put in skill-based matchmaking, and somehow they get put against people who have been playing the game all day.
Guys who think that they're gonna go pro.
Right. And then you're just trying to chill and have fun and relax and sit back on your chair while you play and not have to sit up. You just got home from work, a tired day from work, you're just trying to chill, and then you're just just getting destroyed.
I have a 9-to-5 right now.
Yeah.
So when I get home and I go into MLB The Show and I play some cracked 13-year-old on Adderall who's throwing high and in every 5 seconds.
That's why it makes sense for you to want to, either play Battle Royale because it's All-Star, or if you want to play on your Smurf account just so you can chill.
I have 2 Smurf accounts now.
Just because you just want to. It's not about destroying somebody. It's about not playing the computer, but not having to sweat. So.
Well, I've been doing the custom stadium creator a lot too, so that has been helping. With
you live on there, man. You make some great stadiums on there.
I hope so. I mean they get better as I go, because I think I'm learning like what I like and what I don't like, but then also taking ideas from other people, because there's a lot of, if you go to the MLB Show Stadium Reddit, dude, there's so many better creators than me. And I think about that in general, and I think about that with content creating. There's so many better creators than me, and I wish I could shout out every single one of them.
Just learn from them, all right?
I want to get better. I want to learn. I want to like have all these cool people on this podcast and like be able to be like, hey, like we're able to talk about anything. Like we're able to talk about cool stuff that people care about and get deep on this podcast. Because the main thing with my name being the first thing that you hear on this podcast is that like it's always gonna be Taylor Price, even if it's just me, but like I want to talk about subjects that people care about.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's gonna be with a guest, like that guest, like what they care about is always gonna be something I'm gonna dive deep into.
Right.
Because like coaching, although I'm not coaching now, is something I did dive deep into.
Right.
I have a coaching degree.
Yeah.
I literally dove so deep into it. I made sure that I got a degree in it.
Yeah, and you love baseball. You always have, and I mean you've been asking questions about Complete Athlete. You're curious about it, and then as soon as you saw our camaraderie and you saw that opportunity for content creating, I mean you go right back into it. Dude, really quickly.
My head exploded.
Yeah.
I came up with so
the excitement that came out of you was awesome to see for sure.
Yeah, I haven't felt that in a while, and it felt good to be like, this could be a whole new direction for my life where I'm like, instead of dreading going into a 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't dread my job. I have great coworkers.
Right. But no, nobody knows what you're talking about or can relate to what you're saying right now as much as I can, because I'm this is my job. This is my passion. And it's something I get paid for, but it's the first thing that I've done in my life that I truly, truly enjoy. That is a job, and and I think it's not just the job title itself, but it's the environment kind of that Gabe has created and
an atmosphere of
awesome.
like of growth.
This is the last thing I'll say because I have to get going here.
Okay.
Gabe was working as a financial advisor. He was in that world, kind of like what Mom does.
Kind of what I'm doing even.
He was making good money. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? He didn't do this baseball thing for the money. He knew that he wants to make money with this, but he did this because he knew that this is his passion. He knew this is something that he would have fun with. And I think it's important for most people to find that. And it's really hard, and I don't think everyone will find that. And I do think there are some people out there that don't necessarily need that. They're okay with just having a mundane, like we need a Chipotle worker, you know what I mean? We need mechanics.
True.
We need people who are doing jobs that I find awfully terrible and boring and stuff like that and unfulfilling, but we need people to do that. But I don't think any of those people are going to be as happy if they're not doing something that they're passionate about, like what you were talking about with getting into the content creating again, doing something that you truly love and that you're passionate about, because you see the difference in how much effort and work that you put into something that you're truly passionate about, that you could never do with a 9 to 5 job that you don't necessarily care as much about. You know what I mean? There's just no way you're going to put as much effort into that.
I almost have to find the avenue like within the job that is making me happy. Like the part that I like about my job, and I like have to emphasize it in my brain to make it my job feel good, is like I enjoy helping people.
Right.
That's a part of coaching, right? Or I help content creating, helping you guys create content, tell a story. That's helping people.
And that can, and sorry to interrupt, but that can even come from like an HR manager. Like
100%.
Even if you are working at a job that kind of like the company is not your passion or whatever, but if your passion is to help people, just being like an HR and making a good environment is something that could be
something that you could
be passionate about and that you could love.
Because I'm within a job where like I help people in a certain way, and it's like it's a cool way to help people, but like the only thing that I find fulfilling is that I'm helping people.
Right.
It's not the job or the company or whatever.
Right.
Whereas like if I'm doing content creating for Complete Athlete and myself, like that's gonna be way more fulfilling.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's definitely a avenue we're going down in the future. So CompleteAthleteTraining.com, CompleteAthleteApparel.com.
Yep.
And also Taylor Price Podcast on Spotify and YouTube. This has been my brother at Coach Mason Price on Instagram. Thank you so much, brother.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, you're doing this again because, one, we've had such a good talk, but two, the Complete Athlete Podcast and me are going to be paired together.
Yeah,
no matter what. I'm telling Gabe, and you better tell him too that like.
Yeah, I'm going to be in his ear the whole time.
The vision that we have right now is already looking great. So like, I just can't wait to expand on it. So.
Yeah. It's going to be really fun. I'm excited to see where we are a year from now, man.
Hell yeah. Right. Well, thank you guys for listening. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
Taylor Price, my guy.